I'm Garrett, 38, and never thought my decade of saving for a peaceful Maine vacation home would trigger a family crime drama. My sisters Pamela and Natalie were always a bit entitled growing up, but I never imagined they'd demand to turn my personal sanctuary into their rental business. When I refused, things escalated beyond belief. Now their husbands are facing criminal charges after breaking into my property, and our family may never be the same. Before I dive into how my own brothers-in-law ended up in handcuffs, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to deal with entitled family members. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Philadelphia, my family seemed normal on the surface. Mom worked as a nurse, Dad as a high school teacher, and we lived comfortably but without extravagance. As the only boy with two sisters, I noticed early on how differently Pamela and Natalie were treated. When Pamela wanted new dance shoes, they appeared within days. When Natalie needed a computer for school projects, it materialized despite budget concerns. Meanwhile, I delivered newspapers from age 12 to save for my first bicycle. Garrett's responsible, my parents would say, as if that explained why I had to earn what my sisters received freely. Don't get me wrong, my parents loved me. They just seemed to think I could handle disappointment better. Maybe that's why I developed such a strong work ethic. One Christmas stands out in my memory. I was 14, Pamela 16, and Natalie 13. I had asked for a telescope, having developed an interest in astronomy. Pamela wanted a new stereo system, and Natalie requested an expensive art set. Christmas morning came, and my sisters unwrapped exactly what they'd asked for. I received a book about stars with a note saying, "Save up for that telescope, champ. We know you can do it." I remember nodding and smiling while feeling my heart sink. By college, I'd accepted that self-reliance was my path. I attended State University on a partial scholarship, working 20 hours weekly at the campus ID department, and another 15 at a local diner on weekends. I lived on ramen and coffee while watching classmates enjoy the full college experience. But I graduated with minimal debt and solid job prospects in software engineering. My first position at Tech Solutions paid modestly, but I lived frugally, sharing an apartment with 2 roommates to maximize savings. While friends upgraded to luxury cars and downtown lofts as their salaries increased, I continued driving my 10-year-old Honda and investing the difference. By 30, I had a healthy investment portfolio and substantial down payment fund. Meeting Diana changed everything. Unlike previous girlfriends who questioned my cheap lifestyle, Diana appreciated financial responsibility. A pediatric nurse with her own student loans, she understood delayed gratification. On our third date, we discovered we shared the same dream, a peaceful place near water where we could escape and recharge. "Somewhere with trees and ocean," she said. "Where you can hear waves instead of traffic." "Exactly," I replied, feeling that rare connection of finding someone who gets you. 4 years into my career, after consistent promotions and strategic job changes, I finally earned enough to seriously consider our shared dream. Diana and I spent weekends browsing real estate listings, eventually focusing on coastal Maine. The property we fell in love with wasn't grand, a 3-bedroom cottage on 2 acres with private beach access. Built in the 1970s, it needed work but had solid bones and unforgettable views. I'd visited Maine once as a child on a rare family vacation and remembered it as magical. Now I could create new memories there. The purchase stretched us financially, requiring most of my savings and a mortgage I was determined to pay off quickly. Diana contributed what she could, though I insisted on covering the majority since I earned more. We spent our vacations renovating, painting weathered shingles, replacing dated fixtures, and personalizing each room. That cottage represented everything we'd worked for, our sanctuary away from professional demands and city stress. Meanwhile, my sisters' lives took different paths. Pamela married Maxwell right after college. He worked as a finance broker, and they quickly adopted a lifestyle beyond their means: luxury car leases, a house in an exclusive neighborhood, private schools for their kids. Natalie jumped between careers before marrying Vincent, a real estate agent with big ambitions but irregular income. Both sisters seemed perpetually stretched thin financially despite outward appearances of success. When they learned about my vacation home purchase, their reactions were telling. Pamela's eyes narrowed as she calculated the property's value. "How much did that set you back?" she asked instead of congratulating me. Natalie immediately questioned why I hadn't consulted the family first, as if my personal purchase required their approval. Our first family gathering at the cottage seemed pleasant enough. I proudly showed them around, explaining our renovation choices and future plans. Diana prepared a wonderful dinner, and we enjoyed sunset drinks on the deck. Yet throughout the weekend, I noticed small things: Pamela examining fixture brands and making mental notes, Natalie photographing rooms, both sisters discussing potential in hushed tones when they thought I wasn't listening. The last morning, I overheard Vincent on the phone. "Gorgeous waterfront, easily could get 1,500 a weekend in summer." When he saw me, he quickly ended the call and mentioned something about a client property. I felt uneasy but dismissed it, not wanting to create tension with my new brother-in-law. "Beautiful place, Garrett," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You've been holding out on us." I should have recognized the warning signs then, but I was too busy enjoying the fulfillment of our dream to see the storm gathering on the horizon. 6 months after that first family visit, Pamela called with what seemed like a reasonable request. "Garrett, we're thinking of taking the kids to Maine for a week in July. Would you mind if we used the cottage?" I agreed with basic conditions: respect the property, replace anything damaged clean before leaving. Simple courtesies any reasonable person would follow. Diana and I even prepared a welcome basket with local treats and a guide to our favorite spots. What we discovered afterward was infuriating. Through our neighbors' casual comments, we learned Pamela and Maxwell had hosted what amounted to a small party house. "Your nephews and nieces were adorable," Mrs. Henderson said, "but I wasn't sure about those other 3 families." Other families? We'd explicitly said immediate family only. When we arrived for our own weekend, we found scratched hardwood floors, wine stains on our new sofa, a broken antique lamp, and suspicious damage to the boat dock. Most concerning, Diana's grandmother's silver serving set was missing 3 pieces. I called Pamela immediately. "Oh, those?" she replied dismissively when I mentioned the silver. "I thought they were just old things you wouldn't miss. They looked exactly like some pieces Mom has." "They were Diana's grandmother's," I said, trying to control my anger. "And the house looks like it hosted a frat party." "Don't exaggerate," she scoffed. "Kids make messes. And we had a few friends drop by. It's not like you were using the place." After minimal apologies and promises to replace the silver, which never materialized, I decided to be more cautious about family access. That's when the real trouble began. A month later, Natalie sent an email with the subject line, "Business Proposition." Opening it, I discovered a detailed plan for turning my vacation home into a short-term rental. She and Pamela would manage everything: marketing, bookings, cleaning, for a mere 60% of the profits. The email included projected revenue streams and potential improvement investments to maximize rental appeal. I called her immediately. "Natalie, this isn't a business opportunity. It's our personal retreat." "Don't be selfish, Garrett," she replied. "That place sits empty most of the year. Do you know how much money you're wasting? Vincent says waterfront properties can generate incredible returns." "It's not about returns," I explained. "It's about having our own space that's just ours. The whole point was creating a peaceful place away from work pressures." "That's so wasteful," she insisted. "You can have your peace and make money too. We're trying to help you here." That call marked the beginning of weekly contacts, sometimes Pamela, sometimes Natalie, occasionally both, each with new angles on why I should convert my sanctuary into their business venture. When direct approaches failed, they enlisted our parents. Mom called, concern in her voice. "Honey, the girls mentioned you're being a bit difficult about the main house. They're just trying to help you manage that expensive property." Mom, it's not an investment property. It's our personal vacation home. I know, dear, but family helps family. And they could use the income from managing it. Maxwell's commission checks have been unpredictable, and Vincent's real estate business is struggling. There it was, the real motivation. My sisters weren't concerned about my wasted asset. They wanted a new income source for themselves. The family narrative shifted subtly. At gatherings, relatives asked why I was hoarding the vacation home. Comments about my lucky break in affording such a place multiplied, ignoring the decade of sacrifices that made it possible. Diana even received calls from my sisters, attempting to convince her that rental income could fund more renovations or nice vacations. For both of you. Thanksgiving brought everything to a boil. We gathered at my parents' house, where I'd barely settled in before Pamela brought up the cottage in front of everyone. So we've found the perfect property management company, she announced as if decisions had already been made. They specialize in luxury short-term rentals on the Maine coast. I set down my drink. Pamela, we've discussed this. The cottage isn't for rent. Maxwell jumped in, spreadsheet ready on his tablet. We've run the numbers, Garrett. You're sitting on a gold mine. Even after management fees and cleaning costs, you could clear $40,000 annually, minimum. That's not the point, I said, feeling ambushed. It's our private home, not a business. Vincent leaned forward. Private home that you use 20 days a year? That's not just bad business, it's selfish when family could benefit. Benefit how exactly? Diana asked quietly. Well, Natalie said with forced casualness, we thought a fair arrangement would be management fees for us, plus commission for Vincent's marketing expertise and consulting fees for Maxwell's financial oversight. I laughed incredulously. So you want to rent out our personal space and take most of the profits? How is that fair? Because without us you'd earn nothing, Maxwell stated flatly. You're choosing to leave money on the table out of stubbornness. The argument escalated until I stood up. This discussion is over. The cottage is not for rent, not to strangers, not through you, not ever. It's our private space, purchased with our money for our use. This is what I mean about him hoarding wealth. Pamela told the table as Diana and I gathered our coats. He got lucky with that tech job and now thinks he's better than family. We left early, the first time I'd ever walked out on a family holiday. What followed was 2 weeks of silence from my sisters, though my parents called repeatedly urging reconciliation. Just hear them out, Dad pleaded. They feel excluded. Diana provided much-needed perspective. They're not entitled to what we built, she reminded me. Would they share their homes with us on demand? Would they give you 60% of their paychecks? She was right, of course. Yet part of me wondered if I was being unreasonable. The property did sit empty often. Was I being selfish? After considerable reflection, I decided my boundaries were appropriate. The cottage represented more than financial investment. It was our emotional haven, our reward for years of discipline. No one had the right to demand access to it, especially not as a business venture primarily benefiting them. January brought seemingly apologetic messages from both sisters. Pamela called first, voice contrite. I've been reflecting on how we approached things, she said. We came on too strong. I should have respected your attachment to the place. Natalie's email struck a similar tone. Family is more important than business. We value our relationship with you more than any rental opportunity. When they suggested a healing weekend at the cottage to reconnect as siblings, I cautiously agreed. Diana couldn't attend due to hospital shifts, but encouraged reconciliation. Just be clear about boundaries, she advised. The weekend started pleasantly enough with walks on the winter beach and reminiscing about childhood. Yet I noticed odd behaviors. Pamela measuring rooms with her phone app when she thought I wasn't looking, Natalie photographing views and architectural details, both sisters discussing potential in hushed tones. The final morning, I found Natalie in my office photographing property documents. What are you doing? I demanded. Just admiring your organization, she said unconvincingly, sliding my property tax assessment under other papers. Are you gathering information to list my property for rent behind my back? Their denials came too quickly, too forcefully. The healing weekend had been reconnaissance, nothing more. Weeks later, we hosted a family barbecue at the cottage to celebrate Dad's birthday. During casual conversation, my cousin Ryan mentioned, "So I hear this place might be available to rent this summer? Natalie mentioned you're setting up some kind of family discount system." Other relatives nodded, several mentioning conversations with my sisters about booking before the calendar fills up. They'd been promoting my property throughout the family without my knowledge or consent. I confronted them on the spot. "You've been telling people they can rent our home?" "We're just gauging interest," Pamela said defensively. "Testing the market." "There is no market because it's not for rent," I stated firmly. Maxwell stepped forward, drink in hand. "You need to stop being so rigid about this. It's just a house." "It's our home," Diana corrected. "Our private space that we worked years to afford." Vincent laughed dismissively. "Private space sitting empty while you play house on occasional weekends. Meanwhile, we're trying to make actual money for the family." His tone and posture turned threatening as he continued. "Maybe it's time to stop asking nicely." Other family members watched uncomfortably as tensions rose. Dad stepped between us, attempting to defuse the situation, but the damage was done. The pretense of reconciliation had vanished, revealing naked entitlement. A month later, Pamela called with a new tactic, a family emergency requiring money. Her oldest needed special tutoring. Maxwell's commission structure had changed. They were struggling to maintain mortgage payments. "If you just let us handle renting your place, we could solve these problems," she concluded. "I'm happy to help with tutoring costs directly," I offered. "But the cottage isn't the solution to your financial issues." "That's so like you," she snapped. "Controlling how you help instead of trusting family. This would benefit everyone." Further conversation revealed deeper financial troubles. Designer purchases on Max credit cards. A home equity line used for luxury vacations. Investment losses from Maxwell's sure thing tips. "You need financial counseling," I suggested. "Not rental income from my property. We don't need lectures from Mr. Perfect." She hung up angry. The psychological pressure intensified. Late-night texts questioned my character. "A real brother would help family in need." Anonymous negative reviews appeared on my company's professional pages. Friends mentioned uncomfortable encounters with my sisters, who painted me as greedy and selfish. Diana faced similar tactics, receiving calls from Natalie's friends suggesting she talk sense into me. The stress began affecting us both. My sleep suffered, Diana developed migraines, our relationship strained under constant defense mode. Then came the ultimatum dinner. Pamela texted, "Time to resolve this like adults. Dinner tomorrow at Castellano's, 7 p.m. Just siblings and spouses." We should have declined, but hope for resolution outweighed caution. We arrived to find both couples already seated, folders of documents arranged beside water glasses. "Before we order," Maxwell began, sliding a professionally printed proposal across the table. "We've prepared everything needed to start immediately. Premier Property Management will handle day-to-day operations. Vincent's already compiled comparable listings to optimize pricing. We've drafted a management contract for your signature." The document outlined a business where my sisters and their husbands would control all aspects of renting my property while receiving 70% of revenue, even higher than their original proposal. "This isn't a negotiation," I said, sliding the folder back. "The cottage isn't available for rental. Period." Vincent's smile disappeared. "You should reconsider. Family relationships have consequences." "Are you threatening me?" I asked incredulously. "Just stating facts," Maxwell interjected. "Decisions affect how family views you. Right now you're looking pretty selfish to everyone." Diana placed her napkin on the table. "We're done here. This manipulation stops now." As we stood to leave, Natalie called after us. You can't just walk away from family obligations. But that's exactly what we did, recognizing finally that no reasonable discussion was possible. The following Tuesday, my college friend Thomas sent a text that changed everything. Saw your place on Airbnb. Didn't know you were renting it out. Amazing photos. Attached was a listing link. Opening it revealed professional photographs of my cottage, interior shots showing recent furniture arrangements, detailed descriptions of rooms, amenities, and local attractions. The listing title: Luxury Oceanfront Main Escape, Private Beach Access. Most disturbing was the calendar showing several dates already booked and paid for, starting the following weekend. I stared in disbelief at unauthorized photos of our bedroom, kitchen, even bathroom, clearly taken during recent visits. The listing had my correct address but listed Pamela and Natalie as hosts with their contact information. My hands shaking, I called Pamela immediately. How could you possibly think this was acceptable? I demanded when she answered. We knew you'd be difficult initially, she replied with surprising calmness. But once you see the bookings rolling in, you'll thank us. We've already received 3 5-star reviews on our other listings, so the algorithm will favor us. Other listings? This is fraud, Pamela. You don't own this property. Don't be dramatic. We're just managing it efficiently since you refused to. The first guests arrive Friday, lovely couple celebrating their anniversary. We'll handle everything, you won't even notice. There will be no guests, I stated firmly. I'm contacting Airbnb immediately to remove this fraudulent listing. What you've done is illegal. It's family property. Natalie chimed in, apparently on speakerphone. We have just as much right to utilize it properly as you do. That's absolutely false. I have the deed and mortgage in my name. You have zero legal right to rent it out. We're trying to help you maximize your investment. Maxwell's voice joined the conversation. Stop being ungrateful and difficult. The cottage is not an investment property. And entering without permission to photograph and list it is criminal trespassing. Oh please, Natalie scoffed. Family can't trespass on family property. We're doing you a favor managing this rental business for you. Their delusion was complete. They genuinely believed they had rights to my property simply because we shared parents. The conversation ended with their assurance that I'd come around, once I saw the financial benefits. That afternoon, I consulted property attorney Rebecca Fleming, who confirmed my worst fears. This wasn't just a boundary violation but potentially criminal. She drafted an immediate cease and desist letter to my sisters, their husbands, and all short-term rental platforms. We filed formal complaints with Airbnb and similar sites, providing proof of ownership. Next came security measures. I hired a locksmith to change every lock and entry code. We installed a comprehensive security system with cameras covering all approaches, doorways, and key interior areas, with alerts sent directly to our phones. I documented all communications and listed unauthorized individuals prohibited from accessing the property. The family imploded spectacularly. My parents finally recognized the severity of the situation when I forwarded them the fraudulent listing. Mom called, voice shaking. I had no idea they'd gone this far. We never raised them to behave this way. Extended family divided into factions, some supporting my right to control my own property, others suggesting I should share the wealth and stop being difficult about a vacation house. My sisters portrayed me as villainous, claiming I was preventing them from supporting their families during financial hardship. Then came Maxwell's threatening voicemail. You think changing locks keeps us out? There are other ways to access what should be family property. Think carefully about your next move. Diana expressed concerns about our safety and property. They don't seem to understand basic boundaries or laws. She worried. What's stopping them from just breaking in? I sent a final warning message to all 4 of them. The property is legally mine. Any unauthorized entry constitutes criminal trespassing. The property now has comprehensive security with direct police notification. All previous access permissions are formally revoked. Their responses range from dismissive to mocking. Maxwell, big man with his cameras and warnings. Family looking out for family isn't trespassing. Vincent, lawyers and security systems against your own blood. Real classy Garrett. Pamela, drama queen behavior. We're trying to help your investment appreciate. Natalie, those guests are confirmed and paid. They'll need access Friday. Don't embarrass yourself by causing a scene. I notified local police about potential trespassing concerns and prepared for potential escalation, never truly believing they would cross that final line. I was wrong. Wednesday afternoon, I was presenting quarterly projections to our executive team when my phone began vibrating repeatedly. Glancing down, I saw multiple security alerts from the cottage system. Excusing myself, I stepped into the hallway and opened the app to find Maxwell and Vincent actively breaking into my property. The security footage showed them approaching the front door, trying old keys, then Maxwell producing what appeared to be lockpicking tools. After several minutes of failed attempts, Vincent disappeared off camera, returning with a pry bar. They forced the door open, splintering the frame, and entered methodically. With shaking hands, I called the local police department, while watching them move through my home. I'm watching a break-in at my property in real time on security cameras, I explained, providing the address and describing the intruders. They're relatives who listed my home as a rental property without permission. I have video evidence of forced entry happening right now. The officer confirmed they would dispatch units immediately. I watched helplessly as Maxwell and Vincent examined each room, measuring spaces, opening closets, and photographing views. They moved purposefully, clearly preparing for guests. Vincent set up staging elements, fresh flowers, decorative pillows, wine glasses by the fireplace, while Maxwell documented everything with a professional camera. I left work immediately, explaining the emergency to my bewildered boss, and began the agonizing 2-hour drive to Maine. Throughout the journey, I monitored the security feed on Diana's phone while she drove. We watched them discover the security cameras, their expressions changing from surprise to anger. Vincent attempted to disable one camera by covering it with a towel, but the system's multiple overlapping cameras continued recording from different angles. We need to catalog everything, Maxwell said, unaware he was being recorded. The listing mentioned premium cookware and beach equipment. Check the master bedroom for that bedding set in the photos, Vincent replied. Guests expect exactly what they see online. Diana contacted my parents while I provided updates to the responding officers. They're currently in the house, I told the police dispatcher. I can see them right now on security cameras. 2 hours into what felt like the longest drive of my life, we received notification that police had arrived on scene. Through the security feed, we watched officers approach cautiously. Maxwell and Vincent's expressions shifted from concentration to shock as uniforms appeared at the door they'd broken open. Their initial reaction was denial. This is a family misunderstanding, Maxwell insisted as officers questioned them about the damaged door frame. My brother-in-law said we could prepare the place for rental guests. He absolutely did not, I told the officer when they called me. I explicitly forbade them from entering the property and revoked any previous access permissions. They listed my home on rental sites fraudulently and broke in to prepare for unauthorized guests. The officers requested property documentation, which I provided remotely through email, deed, mortgage statements, tax records, all showing my sole ownership. They secured the scene while waiting for our arrival. When Diana and I finally pulled into the driveway, the sight of police cruisers beside my broken front door made the situation's reality hit home. This wasn't just family drama anymore but criminal activity by people I'd once trusted. Inside, the damage was immediately evident. Beyond the splintered door frame, they'd rearranged furniture, removed personal photos, and staged the house as a rental property. In our bedroom, they'd stripped our personal bedding and replaced it with the set featured in their unauthorized listing photos. My office had been converted to a third guest room, with an air mattress installed. Confronting Maxwell and Vincent in police presence was surreal. Their expressions ranged from defiance to practiced victimhood. "This is ridiculous," Maxwell insisted. "We're family helping family." Garrett's being dramatic about a simple business opportunity. "You broke into my home," I stated flatly. "You damaged my property and were preparing to allow strangers to sleep in our beds." "We were handling the rental business for you," Vincent argued. "The listing was already active with bookings. We were preventing negative reviews by ensuring the property matched photographs." Their disconnection from reality was stunning. Even with police present, facing broken doors they'd damaged, they maintained they had done nothing wrong because family property is different. The evidence of planning was overwhelming. They had brought staging materials, professional photography equipment, printed welcome packets for upcoming guests, and even branded toiletry containers. This was no impulsive act but a calculated business operation using my property without consent. The officer in charge asked directly, "Do you want to press charges, sir?" In that moment, looking at these men who had married into my family, who now stood amidst the violation of my most personal space, the decision crystallized. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't family helping family. This was entitlement escalated to criminal behavior. "Yes," I said firmly. "I want to press charges for breaking and entering, criminal trespassing, and property damage." Their expressions of shock were almost comical, as if consequences were unthinkable, as if family ties provided immunity from laws. That shock turned to anger as officers began the formal arrest process. "You'll regret this," Maxwell hissed as handcuffs clicked. "The family will never forgive you." Pamela and Natalie arrived as their husbands were being placed in police vehicles. Their hysterical reaction added surreal drama to an already unbelievable scene. "What have you done?" Pamela screamed at me. "They were helping you. This is what brothers do. Brothers don't break into my home and list it for rent without permission," I replied, emotionally exhausted. "We're family." Natalie sobbed dramatically as Vincent was driven away. "How could you call the police on family?" The irony of their outrage after months of boundary violations was not lost on me. As the police cars pulled away with formal charges of breaking and entering, property damage, and criminal trespassing filed against both men, I stood in my broken doorway wondering how we had reached this point, and whether our family could ever recover. The backlash was immediate and vicious. Within hours, my phone exploded with messages from family members, most expressing shock not at the break-in but at my decision to involve police. "Their family," texted my cousin Gregory. "You don't call cops on family, no matter what." My sisters launched coordinated social media attacks, carefully crafting narratives that portrayed me as the villain, the wealthy tech worker punishing struggling family members for borrowing a vacation home that sits empty most of the year. Carefully omitted were details about fraudulent listings, unauthorized rentals, and property damage. My parents called hourly, distraught beyond reason. "Please drop the charges," Mom begged. "Whatever they did, they're still family. This public humiliation will follow them forever." "They broke into my home, Mom," I reminded her. "They were planning to rent it to strangers without permission." "But prison? Criminal records? For your sister's husbands? Is that really what you want?" The pressure to make it go away became the family's singular focus. Few seemed concerned about the violation of our home or the months of harassment preceding it. The prevailing sentiment was that pressing charges crossed some invisible line, while breaking and entering apparently didn't. "Your father hasn't slept since this happened," Mom added, weaponizing guilt. "Is your vacation house worth destroying the family?" Diana's family provided contrasting perspective. Her brother Nicholas, a contractor, was unequivocal. If someone broke into my home and tried to rent it out, they'd face more than just charges. "You showed restraint." Diana's parents called with support rather than judgment. "Boundaries exist for reasons," her father said. "You worked hard for that place. No one has the right to take it from you." These differences highlighted the dysfunctional patterns in my family system that I'd normalized for years. Where Diana's family respected individual autonomy, mine expected sacrificing personal boundaries for family harmony, especially my boundaries. Legal proceedings moved forward despite pressure to withdraw. The initial court appearance confirmed formal charges against both men. During discovery, we learned this wasn't their first such incident. Maxwell had previously faced complaints from business partners about unauthorized use of vacation properties, though charges had been dropped. Vincent had been investigated for questionable real estate practices involving family properties listed without clear authorization. This pattern reinforced our decision to pursue consequences, though the process took an emotional toll. My sisters attempted to contact potential witnesses, including our neighbors, spinning tales about misunderstandings and family agreements. The property management company they'd contacted came forward with emails showing they'd represented themselves as property owners from the beginning. Family therapy, suggested by my parents as a path to reconciliation, devolved into accusation sessions. The mediator eventually noted, "There seems to be fundamental disagreement about basic concepts of ownership and boundaries." The divide widened as extended family chose sides. Surprisingly, several relatives contacted me privately expressing support they wouldn't voice publicly. They tried similar stunts with my lake cabin. My Uncle Clark admitted, "I just gave in because fighting seemed harder. I respect you standing your ground." Professionally, the stress affected my performance. I found myself checking security cameras during meetings, jumping when my phone vibrated, struggling to focus on projects. Diana faced similar challenges at the hospital, her normally steady hands shaking during procedures after particularly hostile family calls. "We need help processing this," Diana suggested after I woke from another nightmare about intruders. We found a therapist specializing in family estrangement and betrayal trauma, Dr. Ramirez, who helped contextualize our experience. "What you're describing is a profound violation of trust," she explained. "The people who should respect your boundaries most instead deliberately trampled them. That's traumatic, especially coming from family." Sessions with Dr. Ramirez helped me recognize patterns I normalized. My sister's entitlement wasn't new but rather a continuation of childhood dynamics where their wants superseded others' needs. My parents' pressure to forgive without accountability similarly reflected long-established patterns of maintaining peace at my expense. "Healthy boundaries aren't negotiable," Dr. Ramirez emphasized. "And natural consequences for violation aren't punishment, they're how adults learn respect." 3 months after the break-in, Maxwell's attorney approached with a settlement offer, a formal written apology, full restitution for damages, and community service in exchange for reduced charges. Vincent followed with a similar proposal days later. After consultation with our attorney, we agreed to consider the offer if both men would acknowledge, in writing, that they had no rights to our property and would face immediate legal consequences for any future contact. Their initial resistance to this condition spoke volumes about their continued sense of entitlement. Eventually, facing the reality of potential jail time and career-ending criminal records, they agreed. My sisters took longer to acknowledge reality. Pamela maintained icy silence while Natalie vacillated between tearful apologies and passive-aggressive comments about disproportionate reactions to family helping family. Only after their husbands accepted legal responsibility did they begin to recognize the severity of what had occurred. 6 months post-incident, we agreed to a carefully mediated family meeting with strict ground rules: no accusations, no minimizing, focus on future boundaries rather than past grievances. My parents hosted at their home, neutral territory for all involved. "I need to understand that my home is my home," I stated clearly. "Not family property, not a business opportunity, not something I'm obligated to share. And we need acknowledgement that listing our property without permission and breaking in were serious violations, not misunderstandings," Diana added. The conversation remained tense but civil. My sisters and their husbands had begun financial counseling, a condition I'd insisted upon for any relationship rebuilding. The process had apparently forced confrontation with their unsustainable financial choices. "We've been living beyond our means for years," Pamela admitted reluctantly. It became normal to expect bailouts when things got tight. And we convinced ourselves we deserved access to your things because you seemed to have more, Natalie added. It wasn't right. These admissions didn't heal everything immediately, but they provided foundation for potential rebuilding. We established clear contact protocols, scheduled calls rather than impromptu demands, no discussions of property use without explicit invitation, financial boundaries around lending or investing in their ventures. Through this painful process, I recognized that reconciliation didn't require surrender of boundaries. In fact, true healing could only begin with clear, enforced limits that everyone respected. Whether our family relationships would fully recover remained uncertain, but at least the path forward now acknowledged reality rather than entitled fiction. The legal process concluded with outcomes that balanced consequences with opportunity for rehabilitation. Both Maxwell and Vincent accepted plea agreements including 2 years probation, restitution for all damages, and 200 hours community service with Habitat for Humanity. The judge granted our request for restraining orders preventing them from approaching within 500 feet of our property without explicit written permission. The court recognizes the family connection, Judge Harmon stated during sentencing. But family ties don't confer ownership rights or excuse criminal behavior. Property boundaries must be respected regardless of relationship. Their professional lives suffered unavoidable consequences. Maxwell's finance firm placed him on probationary status pending completion of ethics training. Vincent's real estate broker required supervision for all transactions involving family properties. These career impacts finally drove home the seriousness of their actions in ways our protests never had. Rebuilding family relationships progressed in careful stages. I met with each sister separately before attempting group interactions. Pamela, historically the more dominant personality, struggled most with acknowledging fault. I still think you overreacted, she admitted during our first coffee meeting. But I understand now you had the legal right to control your property. It's not just legal rights, I explained patiently. It's respect for our space and what it means to us. That cottage represents years of sacrifice and dreams. Natalie showed more genuine remorse. I got caught up in the idea of easy money, she confessed. Vincent kept talking about the gold mines sitting empty, and it became an obsession. I never stopped to consider your feelings. Our parents, witnessing these careful reconciliation attempts, began recognizing their role in fostering entitlement patterns. Dad acknowledged during a difficult conversation, "We probably created some of these expectations by always making you share with your sisters when you were kids, even things you earned yourself. And we never required the same from them," Mom added quietly. "We thought we were teaching generosity, but maybe we taught something else instead." 3 months after the court proceedings concluded, we attempted our first cautious family gathering, a neutral location lunch with clear time boundaries. The conversation remained superficial but civil, focusing on safe topics rather than reopening wounds. These controlled interactions gradually extended in duration and depth as new patterns of communication emerged. The most challenging aspect of healing was establishing new family norms that respected individual boundaries. Where previously my parents had mediated conflicts by encouraging accommodation, primarily mine, they now supported clear boundary statements. "That doesn't work for us," became an acceptable response rather than a selfish rejection. Meanwhile, reclaiming our violated sanctuary required emotional work beyond physical repairs. The broken door and damaged frame were easily fixed, but the sense of intrusion lingered. We upgraded to a comprehensive security system with advanced features and multiple verification methods. While these measures provided practical protection, the psychological security took longer to restore. Our first weekend back after completing repairs felt tense. Diana jumped at every notification from her phone. I found myself checking window locks repeatedly. We'd both wake at night imagining sounds of intrusion. "They've taken more than just trying to use the space," Diana observed. "They've taken our peace of mind here." Gradually, through deliberate effort, we reclaimed our sanctuary. We rearranged furniture to create new spatial patterns distinct from the violated configuration. We implemented strict new house rules for any visitors, family or otherwise. Most importantly, we created new positive memories to overlay the negative associations. The whole experience catalyzed important personal growth. I developed confidence in maintaining boundaries without guilt or justification. Confronting conflict directly rather than accommodating unreasonable demands became easier with practice. Diana and I grew closer through navigating the crisis together, our partnership strengthened by unified response to external pressure. Relationships with supportive family members deepened as well. Diana's family demonstrated what healthy boundaries looked like. My Uncle Clark and Aunt Alice offered understanding based on similar experiences. Even my cousin Ryan, initially critical of my overreaction, eventually acknowledged the principle at stake. No one has the right to take what isn't theirs, even family. Looking back now, I understand that entitlement doesn't develop in isolation. My sister's belief that they deserved access to my property stemmed from lifelong patterns where their desires took precedence. Our parents' well-intentioned but imbalanced approach to sharing created expectations that persisted into adulthood. Maxwell and Vincent's willingness to break laws reflected confidence that family connections would supersede legal boundaries. The question of family obligation versus personal rights remains complex. We have responsibilities to support our loved ones, certainly. But support shouldn't require surrendering autonomy or accepting violation. True family love respects individual boundaries rather than demanding their erasure. I remain grateful for those who stood by us through this ordeal. Diana's unwavering partnership provided stability when family pressure became overwhelming. Friends who offered perspective rather than judgment helped contextualize the situation. Professionals from our attorney to our therapists provided frameworks for navigating uncharted emotional territory. As for my sisters, cautious healing continues. Our relationships will never return to pre-incident dynamics, nor should they. The healthier path forward involves mutual respect, clear boundaries, and acknowledgement of past patterns rather than pretending nothing happened. Whether this evolves into close sibling bonds again remains uncertain, but the foundation now rests on reality rather than entitled expectations. If you've faced similar family boundary violations, I hope my experience offers some validation. Standing firm doesn't make you selfish. Requiring respect for your property and space isn't unreasonable. And sometimes, the most loving family action is establishing consequences that prevent further harmful behavior. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember that healthy relationships require both love and boundaries.